in here, and anybody that has a problem hearing, get you a chair and move it up right in here somewhere where you can hear good. This is not like church where everybody wants to get there early and get back early. Right here, these chairs are padding in them, and it's not good either in the back or in the front. But if you do, I noticed when I was sitting back there, I couldn't hear it much. But move on up here.
And the people here will have microphones, so that will help. But
Thank
thank you again for coming, and we'll be talking more to you later.
So good afternoon, evening everyone. My name is Robert Becker. I work for the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. And my role within the department is I work in stakeholder engagement. So give a little bit of backstory. A couple of years ago, we started getting calls about biosolids in Van Buren and Warren County. And I took those complaints and passed them to the appropriate people. We ended up having a stakeholder meeting up in Van Buren County. Is there anybody in here that was up at that one? So this meeting is going to be a little bit different than that one. And I'll tell you why in just a few minutes. But over the past couple of months, Amy has reached out to me and has been talking specifically about areas on Dark Hollow Road and your concerns. So I've been working with the department to try and look at those concerns, make sure that as stakeholders, your voices are heard. So a few minutes ago, or a minute ago, I said tonight would be a little bit different. As you came in, and if you didn't get one, I asked you to do it. There's a comment card. Up in Van Buren, if you guys remember, we talked about a period of time that the permit would come back up. And this is not just for one site, but this is for the entire state. So this is the statewide operating permit for biosolids. And when John Newberry comes up, he's the supervisor over that program. He's going to talk a little bit about that permit and the permitting process. But on the back table where Marcy is, next to the chips, there are these comment cards. You do not have to fill out your name, your address, any of that stuff. But if you want to be followed up with and get the conclusion to this, you got to check that and give us at least one version of contact information. We're not using it to track you. What we're using it for is to get that information back to you, address your concerns and your questions. Also, as part of that, September 5th, there's going to be the public hearing for that permit. Again, it's a statewide operating permit, which Chattanooga and all the other people fall under. And that will be at the Davy Crockett building. And if you make this information, if you give us your information, I will send you an email that has a link to the state operating permit, which will also have a WebEx link that you can use to watch it from your home or wherever you're at. So I want to make sure, though, between now and September 20th, that this is your opportunity to make sure that your comments on this permit are known. So with that, I want to introduce the people that I have with me. Tonight I have John Newberry, who's in the middle right there. He's the Biosolids coordinator. I have Brad Harris, his supervisor. I also have Allie. And Allie is one of our legislative liaisons. So she works similarly to what we do on a local level, but with our legislators. And then I have my counterpart, Megan Plock, in the back. She does the exact same thing that I do, but in Chattanooga. And then in the back right corner, the one that is always the most busy is Marcy Groves. She works out of our Cookville Environmental Field Office. So one thing I do want to share, as we do a lot of times with these meetings, is I know that this is a passionate subject, and I know that people have strong opinions on both sides. But Senator Bowling, when she came to us and wanted to do this, she wanted to have a solutions-based meeting, something that we can talk through. What are some opportunities that we can do to improve this permit, change the permit, do other things? So as we go through tonight, I just challenge you and ask you to think outside the box and think about ways that this whole process can be made better. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce John Newberry. let him come up and say a few words and talk a little bit about our Biosolids program and other things like that. So thank you.
Thank you all. I appreciate you having us in. Thanks, Robert. He got here early and put out snacks for everybody and printed off a bunch of copies of things. Robert and Marcy did all that. I had nothing to do with any of that. So I just want to, I should not have touched that microphone. Sorry. Okay, I'll leave that alone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. I just want to say, first of all, that I don't want you to think for a second that I'm up here talking at you or anything like that. We're mainly here to listen to you. And I'm just going to give you some general information about the biosolids permitting process, kind of what it is, some background on it. And before I start that, I want to throw out a disclaimer. I'm not a biosolids expert. I'm getting better with the program. There's a lot to it. It's a really complicated, the biosolids rule is really complicated. It's very treatment process heavy. And so normally when I'm talking to somebody about it, I like to have the general permit in front of me just so there's a lot of information in there. And so I say all that to say your questions later, some of them I'll be able to answer and some of them I may not. If I can't, I will follow up with you on it. I'll do research, whatever I need to do. And when I talk to you, I'll probably have a copy of the general permit sitting in front of me. So, but just a little bit of a background. We have a little bit of a weird setup in Tennessee with biosolids because we're not a delegated state. I don't know if you've heard that term. EPA is the primary permitting entity for biosolids. I shouldn't say permitting, they don't really issue permits, but they are responsible for the biosolids program in the state of Tennessee. They're the ultimate permitting authority. And then Tennessee has its own program that kind of mirrors the EPA program. But EPA basically has not turned over authority to us to do the program on their behalf, basically. And we didn't have any biosolids rules until 2013 in the state. Bob Odette, who is an actual expert in biosolids, he set up the biosolids rules, and then the permit that Robert was talking about just a second ago, he drafted that permit, and that originally went into effect in 2014. So that general permit has not been around very long. It was, and like Robert mentioned, your timing for this meeting really is perfect, and I appreciate you having it because, like he said, that general permit comes up for public notice every 5 years. And so that general permit actually just went on public notice on Tuesday of this week, and you have until September 20th to email me comments. And the contact card that he showed you back there, it's got my email on there, and I want to encourage you, please email me. I'm very serious about that because we're very open to changing the biosolids program. It's not perfect, and I recognize that. There's room for improvement. And your comments will be taken very seriously, and they will help us. They help us to know what we might need to change, give us a basis for it. And so I hope every one of you here will send me comments, plus a lot of other people. I really do. So that's the biggest thing that I have to offer you is that, and it will matter. I'm not just saying that. But just a little bit of background on what the permit actually is. Like Robert said, it's a general state operating permit, and it's for the land application of non-exceptional quality biosolids. And one of your questions, and I'll just start out with that, and it's an excellent question, what are biosolids? Biosolids basically are, so wastewater comes into the wastewater treatment plant, and at some point during the process, the solids are going to be settled out. And those solids are then treated and dewatered. And if they can meet the biosolids rule, then they can be land applied at an agronomic rate to whatever crop they're growing. If they can't meet the biosolids rule, they have to be sent to a landfill, or incinerated is another option, but I don't know of anyone in the state that incinerates biosolids. There might be somebody, but I haven't heard of that. So it's basically either send to the landfill or meet the biosolids rule and land apply it. And there are some cities and utilities that still prefer to send it to the landfill even if they meet the biosolids rule, so that's just kind of their decision. And that general permit only applies if they land apply biosolids. So if they send it to a landfill, they don't need a permit from us for that. It's only about the land application of biosolids. Some of the things that permit does require, there are 9 different pollutants that have to be tested. The material has to be tested for those, and they're basically all metals. And again, I'd need the general permit in front of me to tell you the limits on all those. I don't have that memorized, but I can get it for you. So there's the pollutant concentrations that they test for, and then there's PCB and a toxicity characteristic leaching profile that they have to do to make sure it's not hazardous waste. And that's the only requirement that we have that is different from the EPA rule, is our general permit requires that they test for PCBs and that leaching profile. Everything else matches up identically with EPA's rule, for better or worse. I'm not saying that's good or bad, I'm just telling you that's what it is. And then another part of it, you've probably heard the term pathogen reduction. Another question that one of you asked, what's the difference between Class A and Class B biosolids? And so just an example from our permit, a real common method that permittees will meet pathogen reduction is they do something called the geometric mean of fecal coliform. So they'll take 7 representative samples and they'll measure the fecal coliform, and if it is below 2 million, most probable number per gram, I had to get that unit right, then it meets pathogen reduction to be a non-exceptional quality biosolid. So if you compare that with Class A biosolids, that number is less than 1,000. So it goes from 2 million down to less than 1,000. So it's a big step up in treatment from Class A, or from Class B up to Class A. And so part of that is basically if they can meet Class A, then they're what we call an exceptional quality biosolid. And if that's the case, then they're exempt from having to apply for permit coverage with us, because it's only for non-exceptional quality biosolids. So just a little bit of a breakdown. We have 67 permitted cities or utilities that have permit coverage under the biosolids permit, and we have 13 EQ facilities that are exempt from permit coverage. And I guess I was thinking there was something else I wanted to tell you about that, but maybe not. But my take-home point is absolutely to please comment. We're going to have a public hearing. I think Robert mentioned that on September 5th. That's at 1 o'clock Central Time, and the hearing notice has a Teams link in it. So you can just click on that and tune in from your house if you want to, and you can ask questions remotely. You don't have to be there to ask questions or to make comments. And then you'll still have through September 20th to send me actual comments about the permit or anything else you'd like. And so I guess one final thing I wanted to say was, I talked about all the different things that the general permit does, but as you all know, there are major things that it doesn't do. So the biggest one historically has always been we have no time frame, that we can't specify in our rule or in our general permit how long someone can leave biosolids on site before they land apply it. And I'm sure probably some of you have experienced what happens with that. That contributes to odor being really bad, especially if it is an alkaline product, and that's what Chattanooga has. What they do is raise the pH of the biosolids up to 12, and if they leave it at 12 for 2 hours, and then if it's 11.5 or better after 22 hours, then that meets pathogen reduction and vector attraction reduction in the rules. So that's what they do, and some others do that too. But the problem with that is if they don't land apply it in a reasonable time frame, then the odor starts getting bad because the pH starts dropping. And so EPA doesn't have it in their rules about a maximum amount of time, that you have to have that land applied in. So what happens is someone could take biosolids to a site that they're going to land apply to a crop, and they've gotten that site approved. And we call that staging the biosolids. And so if the biosolids are not applied in a reasonable amount of time, then that's where you run into those odors. I would love to have it in our rule that we'd have a minimum amount of time that product has to be land applied in, and send me comments if you'd like to see that. I mean, that's something that will help me. Another thing that I know Amy's going to talk about, PFAS concerns. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns there. I'm just trying to be honest with you. I think EPA is just recently started a study on biosolids and PFAS, and I know there's one out of the University of Arizona that's taken in a lot of different, I think 28 sites across the country, and it's not finished yet. So there's just a lot of information we don't know, and Amy's talked to me about that, and I know she's done a lot of research on it, and I don't blame her for being concerned. I wish I had something good to tell you on that, but I don't have the information myself. The only last thing I'll say that I left out of the permit, since these operations are non-exceptional quality, we also have site restrictions. And talking about Amy is what made me realize that I left that out, because there are like 8 different site restrictions in our rule, and one of those is grazing animals like cattle are not allowed to access the site anytime during staging or up to 30 days after land application of biosolids. And I've talked to her about, she let me know that that's been happening at a site. And there are some other site restrictions too, like if it's a site that has high potential for public access, then no one's supposed to be there for a year after land application. If it's a site with low potential, then it's 30 days. So there are several site restrictions like that since it's non-EQ. But I guess that's all I had, just an overview about the general permit requirements and areas where we'd like to have improvement. It's definitely not a perfect program, and I really mean that. Please send comments. We want you to, and we're very open to listening to those. And the way that will work is after the September 20th date has passed, we'll compile all those comments, and we have to respond to all those, and we will respond to your comments. And based on how many comments we get and what they're about, I mean, if we can change something in the permit, we will, or change something about the program. So your comments will matter, and I guess that's all I have. Thank you.
Next speaker, Leanne, folks. I would like to ask everyone to silence the phone if you can.
Unlike all of you, drainage is bad right now, so please forgive me. Everybody's telling their backstory. I'm going to tell my backstory just one quick minute. I do like to talk, and this will be hard for me, but I've got to get it. I've got to do it. Backstory. I am a nurse practitioner at Pioneer Pediatrics. Oh, microphone. Okay. Backstory. I am a nurse practitioner at Pioneer Pediatrics, and healthcare was my main thing when I started this. Me and my husband sold our home of 15 years, bought some beautiful land out on Dark Hollow Road. I don't know if you guys know where that's at, but that's the road that leads you to Cumberland Caverns. And if you've never drove out by there, you should. It's absolutely gorgeous. There's tons of farmland, there's some farm animals, there's some nursery. It's just gorgeous. The hills are rolling. We were tickled to death that we bought this that we found some land. We had been looking for about 2 years for land. Kind of was looking out in the Irving College area, but found this and we jumped on it that very same day we went and bought it. There were 3 people right behind us what's going on with this thing?
I have no idea.
Trying to buy it right out from under us. So we hurried up and bought it, and life is good until we hear neighbors saying, oh, but that biosolid, that human waste being spread is not a good situation. And I'm like, what? Human waste? Who does that? I had no clue. None. I hope that most of you all in here kind of have a little bit of a clue, but you might not. I did not know anything about them spreading human waste. I'm thinking automatically, the nurse in me is like, that is not good. That is not healthy. We know that there's things in people's bodies and excrement that comes out that's not good. Well, I go home, I start digging into it a little bit. It only took me a few days of really researching, just a few hours, of what human waste, they call it biosolids, consisted of. And I'm just shocked that we can still have some of this stuff happening with the little bit of regulations that we have. And I say little, I started reading TDEC's rules, this regulation, and it's a lot. I don't even know half of the words, but I just dug. It's a lot. It's a lot of going around and around, and it still doesn't address everything, just like John was saying. So we've got to come together to make tighter rules and regulations for this, y'all, for our health. Digging into this, looking at the health effects of PFAS on our children. I looked at that first because that's near and dear to me. It even has a spot for providers. Know this: if a child is exposed to PFAS, these are the signs and symptoms you're going to look for. We have to be aware of this. You guys have heard with your kids. I've heard all day long about the heavy metals this, the heavy metals that. Okay, this PFAS stuff is just an addition to that, but I'm going to think it's way worse. Okay? So, if you'll bear with me really quick, I'm going to get the slideshow going on. I just wanted to kind of share some of the information that I've kind of dug up over these past few weeks. My goal tonight is for you to educate yourself. Go home. We're not going to spend a ton of time on each one of my slides, but you have those right in front of you. Please go home and research yourself. I put all of the links on there. If you can't see them, oh my gosh, you might have to get a magnifying glass because I had to at some of them. Please call me and let me know. If you will put your contact information on the sign-in sheet, I'll go ahead and add you to email lists, and we'll just start communicating, a bunch of us. My goal tonight is for us to unite, come together, spread this message, be here for every single person, the farmer, the kids, the neighbors that have to live with this. We need to fix this. This is not a situation that we can just hide our heads in the sand about anymore, okay? So whatever we can come up with solution-wise, let's do. Let's kind of grab it together and see what we can get fixed here, okay? All right, let me get this on. Kelly Walker has been gracious enough to bring her video camera, and she's got a microphone up here. This will be she'll put this on her podcast if any of you want to share it. She said she'll go through and have it edited. And yeah, we want to share. We want to just get the word out. Okay? All right, here we go. Biosolids, what do we really know? And please forgive me because some of this may be redundant. I got a lot of this information directly from TDEC's 503 rule. Is that what it's called? A rule 503? I got the numbers wrong? Okay, all right. So I did get a bunch of the information from there. So here we go. I'd like for us just to watch this really quick.
I'm concerned about the short-term and long-term effects of it.
I came over to see what's going on with this human poop.
What's going on with it?
Yeah, what's going on with it? I think it needs to stop because it's horrible.
It started off probably 40-some years ago.
We're the only city that I know of that's actually banned it.
I serve over 20 plus tenants in one concentrated area at my RV park. What do I do about them? That's their home.
It's poison. It's contaminated. I had a chart that says what was in her water. Nitrates, I think, was the highest, which is poison.
When we moved out to the country, we want to be in an environment where we can be as healthy as we can, and now we have, health issues cropping up in children that we've never had before. And when we discovered that they're using human waste and putting it on farmland, I grew up on a farm, and my dad and my grandpa, I'm not new to farming. They know what they put on their land. And a farmer should know what they put on their land, and they should care about the health of their land. I didn't even think about the water I was drinking. I won't drink a Coke, I won't drink a Pepsi, but I'll drink water straight out of the tap because I thought it was safe. I thought that our government was protecting us.
We're talking about 50,000 pound truckloads. And their own regulations, the EPA regulation, mandates that it be disked in 4 inches deep. It is never disked in 4 inches deep. After they disk it, you can see the material on the surface. The ground is black after they get done.
Everything that they're getting is contaminated with PFAS, PFAs, which is forever chemicals. What's happening in Maine now should be a wake-up call to Oklahoma to stop all permits for sludge. These farmers in Maine that were told by their DEQ, their Department of Environmental Quality, that this was safe and it's fine and it's green and environmental. Now those farmers are being shut down. They're being told by their government, the same government that told them it was safe, they're being told it's not safe, we're sorry.